my situation when I was 26. Psychedelic drugs, divorce, bankruptcy, homelessness, if that's what you want to call it. It was embarrassing. But at this point, it's part of my story, and I'm proud of it. When you feel like you're in rock bottom, what helped me turn my entire life around? It's not a straight up or a straight down, it's waves.
So Jason, what I find probably the most amazing thing about your story is that a lot of people are having a hard time. It's a mess out there. They're very scared. They feel that they're in the dumpster. They don't know how they're going to get out of this financially, emotionally, physically. How did you come to a realization there's another side to the worst side of everything?
Right. So I never stopped reading, and being somewhat of a seeker, I was looking for answers in places, some off-kilter places, but still looking. And I came across a reference to a teacher from the early 1900s. His name was Gurdjieff. And he was a spiritual guru kind of person. Some people think he may have been a phony, but his work is very interesting. And so he booted up what was called the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man in France in the early 1900s. And there was a writer that essentially studied under him for a while, and he wrote a book about his learnings with Gurdjieff called In Search of the Miraculous. And there was one specific concept in that book that has always stuck with me. He calls intentional suffering. So that is, the concept essentially goes that everyone has a predetermined amount of suffering that they will go through in life, right? A lot of the religions teach this, right? There's suffering. And the point of this concept is that if you choose how to suffer and when to suffer, and you're doing it intentionally, and you're doing it for a better outcome in the future, right? So this goes even so much as to like having hard conversations with people, saying something that might be difficult to say, but once it's out, and that relationship might be healed, maybe after a little bit of turbulence because of what you said, but you've chosen to suffer in that moment, right?
I'm going to jump in here. This reminds me almost like with the thought that I've heard that this is a learning planet, because sometimes we wonder why this planet, we have a repetition every 40 years, like literally the same crap happens over and over and over again, and you're going, why do we not learn from history? And that ties right into this, that this is a learning planet, and these are the lessons that people come here to learn. So that's what I'm hearing. So is there a part of this in this?
Oh yeah, that is. So I found Gurdjieff through another writer named Robert Anton Wilson, who was one of the psychedelic philosophers of the 60s, 70s, and a little bit into the 80s. But that was one of his big pieces. Is I don't know what the world is, except I know that it is school, and it is, right? You have to pick up concepts that become your guiding star through life. And so that, that was about 26. I'll be retired by 55 if I want to. So in 30 years, I was able to turn my entire life around and build something for myself and my family that puts me on a foundation that is stable and allows me to do some of the things that I want to do for my family, my friends, my life, my goals, right? So back to that moment, and that was, what is intentional suffering in that moment, right? When you feel like you're in rock bottom. And there's a few things, right, that you learn discipline. One of those is financial. I filed bankruptcy. That stays on your credit score for 10 years or so. So without borrowing money, I had probably close to a minimum wage job once I got back. And I learned how to use money and avoid debt in a way that helped me recover, right? When I had started my own business and it was time to get lines of credit and business loans, all of that was way in the past. I had a solid history of credit using credit the right way. And that was hard, right? For 10 years, making a pretty low salary, I was in survival mode and learning how to save, learning how to use money the right way. And again, it's real easy to ask for money or to go into debt again. I was very undisciplined when it came to my recreational activities in my early 20s. So it was, what practices do I need to do to put my mind in the right place where I don't have to battle these panic attacks and anxiety attacks that I don't know if you've ever had panic attacks, but it feels like the bottom just drops out of your world physically and you're just falling. And there's a couple mantras that I learned that are quite funny when your mind starts to spin, right? Like a mantra is something you just say over and over again in order to ground you. And one of those, which I mentioned Robert Anton Wilson, I think this was in his book, Cosmic Trigger, but it was just shut the fuck up. And right. And my mind,
don't believe everything you think.
Right. My mind would start spinning and I was going into that anxious panic place and I would just close my eyes and say, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. Over and over again, telling myself that. And it just trained my mind like, this is absurd. You're doing this to yourself. And this is entirely like, you made this mess. It's time for you to clean it up.
It's so interesting that you say that because I had a conversation with my daughter who was here over the weekend, and she's by all means, an emotional person for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I can see how she's really changing into version 2.0. And I asked her how it felt. And she had made a deliberate choice of not being so emotional anymore because she felt it was not necessary. And so you are saying, and she said the same thing, that there is a choice you have over how you are managing what your brain feeds you. Can you give our audience maybe a couple of pointers? Because I think a lot of people are still in that state where they believe everything they think. Short of saying, shut up, right? Is there a path that we maybe can outline for them or a couple of pointers that we can give them? I think that'll be important.
Oh, sure. I would have to reference some of the books in my library to get too deep into this. So maybe it's good I don't have them. But the concept of reality selection, like this is something that has been discussed by philosophers for a long time, is you create the world you are in by the decisions that you make and the actions that you take. And you have agency in the reality that you choose. And it is difficult decisions. It's difficult conversations. It's conversations with yourself. So here's another tip that I learned in this time. And I actually wrote, my son's going on a senior retreat in March. And I wrote this to him because it's something I did back then. And it was, close your eyes and imagine yourself in your 70s and have a conversation with that person. That person has been through everything that you will go through in your entire life. And that person knows you more than anything. And have a talk to that person, right? What would your 70-year-old self tell you to do in a situation? Or how would they guide you? It's that inner voice is something that everybody has. And I think it's a really good exercise to encourage you to do the difficult thing, but the right thing at the right time.
I like that a lot. It's taking early responsibility for the stuff that's going to bite you in the butt later.
Right. And again, you could probably tell by my casual way, there are lots of distractions on my road still. I love music. I love food. I love culture. I participate in the world with enthusiasm.
And passion, yes.
And passion, right? But there are steps down that road that I know I'm far enough along my path to where those aren't temptations anymore, right? So even something as simple as nicotine, like a nicotine addiction can take you down financially. It feels intended to keep poor people poor because it is so addictive and so expensive and so hard to get off of. But that's, it's a real easy temptation when you're young. You have to embrace the present and the future at the same time to avoid that type of thing.
Well, which is another really big spiritual concept, is that everything happens simultaneously all at once. And there really is no future or past, but that it's all happening in a simultaneous universe. I find this absolutely fascinating. So I want to get now to this piece of, once you understood that there is the law of opposites, was this a piece that you learned from your studies and then you started to consciously implement it? Or was this a different process?
I think it was conversations along the way with people like me, right? I feel like I'm a little bit different of a person that's come into the business world, if you will, right? I've owned probably 8 or 9 LLCs and companies at this point, and I've done a lot, but I'm a college dropout. My family did not have means to help me get through college or any of that. So my life was my school. And some of the early personal challenges and failures that I had definitely informed the the moving into business life. And so I think the benefit of that is like every adverse situation had a more grounded solution for it. I was early in my career, and sometimes the universe comes and whaps you upside the head with a baseball bat because you get overly cocky or too sure of yourself. So that was probably some of the first lessons I learned in business, is like the thing that helped me correct the ship and become successful at some point. Business and personal growth becomes this ship that's just rocking back and forth, and when one thing's going really well, something else is starting to teeter off the edge into the ocean, and that you have to learn that balance. And you have, again, like moving into, like, when things are going really well, you have to prepare for when they're not. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients was about 65% of our business. We're At that point, we were doing a lot of heavy web development work. We had built an intranet for this company, and it was the bulk of our work. But they had, in my opinion, they were taking advantage of that situation because they knew that they were such a big client of ours, and it became toxic. We knew that relationship was going to end, right? Like the gravy train was about over. And we probably realized this about a year before it actually ended. So we had to, what is going to be the plan when we tell this company we don't want to work with them anymore? and and so after, when that happened, and they actually let us go, not vice versa, but it was just as much of a relief, and we had already done the planning for the financial situation that was going to cause. So learning from that mistake, not a mistake, from that situation, we've tried really hard since then, and it's been 15 years probably since that happened. Just a simple rule of don't let any client or situation be more than about 12% of your revenue, because at that point
It gives them too much power over your
yeah,
business. Yes.
exactly. You're back into employee status. And the reason that you want to have a small business is to own your future and your, right.
So now I want to switch this a little bit over. Let's talk shop. So now you have all these crazy lessons. You are starting to do better. Clearly, you are very attuned to recognizing being authentic or living in your authentic self, as much as this word is overused and we're still trying to find an alternative to it. But so how does this now turn into a strategy in your business? Because that is, I think, the greatest challenge that most people have.
Oh, yeah.
May understand the spiritual concept, but how do I turn this into a strategy? Tell us.
Oh, I love this conversation. So this is what people forget. And, as any business owner or person that is going out and trying to sell business, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. And there's so much fake persona in LinkedIn, right? And what I realized, I would have never talked publicly about that my situation when I was 26, right? Psychedelic drugs, divorce, bankruptcy, homelessness, if that's what you want to call it. It was embarrassing. But at this point, it's part of my story and I'm proud of it, right? Like I'm not embarrassed of it. And I think that's what a lot of people forget is that I've done better as a business person once I have owned who, like my core self and my core being, right? You can call that authentic if you want to, but like authentic sounds like it sounds fake too. That word gets overused, right?
Now it really does, right?
Yeah.
Maybe living a
Yeah.
life without a pretense, or just own who you are. But isn't that the most difficult thing? I think that there's a saying in acting where when somebody says, I just want to be myself, and then the teacher says, well, that if you master that, that would be the most difficult act you ever master, to be
Right.
yourself. Yes.
Yeah. And what you learn is everything that you've been through is part of your story. And what you want in business is people, and you don't realize this without some experience, but you want people to be able to say no to you as easily as they say yes to you, right? Like if I'm trying to win someone's business or their trust and I'm acting like another person, like I'm not being myself. I'm just agreeing with this person or saying whatever they want to hear in order to win their trust or win their business. Eventually that's going to come back on me in a negative way because it's not who I am, right? I'm not dry. I'm very emotive. I cry at the drop of a hat as a sad story or an emotional story. And that used to be something that, again, like the things you might think are embarrassing are actually those things that are your true self and what usually binds somebody to you. So if you begin a relationship not knowing yourself or being yourself, and this is where business and life commingle, right? Because this could be a conversation about dating too. If you try to present in a way that you think someone else wants you to be, there's disaster laying ahead.
Truly, truly. So you somehow now recognize that this, but was there a method or a thing where you just say, screw it, I'm just going to strip off it? Because this essence of this is who I am. So you're allowing your story to be your story. Now you allow that story to be the center of what you're creating, but your strength is, going back to the law of polarity and how we started with this, is to come from that to the other side. So the path is then first the recognition of this is what happened. Second, I'm going to own it unapologetically. And then what?
Right. Well, the biggest piece is happiness, right? If you continue to say yes to things that go against your own nature and your values, you will work yourself into a corner where you're miserable. You will surround yourself with people that you don't enjoy being around, and you'll put yourself in situations that you don't like. So, and that is, again, like I pick on LinkedIn a lot lately, but LinkedIn feels like that. Everyone is trying to write the same way and tell the same story and be an influencer there when I know they have a deeper story to tell. And I guess another piece of answering your question is understanding that like a lot of my business success, like the people that truly have supported me and put business, like referred business my way and helped me out, are the people that know almost every bit of my story and don't shy away from it. Right.
That's always been my greatest pleasure in life, is that I think because I always felt like I was the oddball out because I was a creative, but with a strong strategic sense. And I didn't want to be a secretary, and I was not the smartest. And I think what we do intuitively or then consciously is that we take care of people that are weird and odd and don't fit in, because the fabric of life is not the white picket fence. The
secret is everybody's weird and odd. Normal is a construct. Like everyone is into something interesting. Like, I guarantee if we dig in, pick a person and let's start talking, and maybe it's like you're really into Dungeons and Dragons or Pokemon or I don't know, fly fishing, but like there is something in your world that makes you so happy and you're just waiting to talk about it. And let's have that conversation, right? Let's not try to impress each other with our, LinkedIn profile credentials.
I
Like,
like that.
tell me what you love.
So now, how do you use today this knowledge that you have that there's an opposite side of something good and an opposite side of something bad? Because you had said to me that when things are really good, that you're already on high alert. So talk to me about that.
It seems to be more a balancing factor for other people now in business, right? So our organization has probably 60 or 70 employees, maybe more at this point. And so things like cash flow and the biz dev pipeline are huge, right? Like payroll for that many people is massive.
Insane. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it is, once you've been in business long ago, you see that like it's not a straight up or a straight down, it's waves, right? This is when you learn to plan ahead, right? Like it might be something as simple as like let's have some runway, just a separate bank account that is runway for the bad times, right? Like if you're doing 20-30% profit this quarter, that's awesome. Don't spend all that money. Let's put some away. In our line of work, Q1 is almost always very difficult because people are coming out of the holidays. So you anticipate when things are on the up and up. There were a few years where we grew 20-30% a year. Did that keep happening? Absolutely not. Don't get too cocky about your own success or your own potential, because sometimes you're just surfing a wave and that wave will go away.
I think there's a great example right now. It's called Lululemon. And to me, this is like a textbook example of exactly what you're talking about. It was COVID. Everybody was at home. Everybody was at athleisure. Lululemon was the brand. Then other people caught on to it. Now there's all these other brands, from Nike to Alo to God knows. And now Lululemon is suddenly in financial distress. And so what I'm hearing you say and what I'm seeing in the market and what we tell our audience, that when you get into such a fabulous state of you're at the right time with the right message, the right product at the market, and people love you, that's when the law of polarity already starts to pop up. It is that good. What do you need to prepare for?
Right. Yeah. And that's, it's, you could get into the Stoic philosophy there, right? This is the situation. And, again, you're surfing, but that wave doesn't last forever. It's when times are good, thank the universe or whatever God you worship for that situation that you're in. And when times are bad, you have to use that to learn and also to realize that there are devastating things that happen in life, obviously, health, family, whatnot. When you're in the middle of a storm, how you deal with that and what you learn will affect when it happens next time. And
100%.
My goodness, it will happen again.
I want to just maybe talk about how this affects the way you have made decision in your life, because your company VR Studio merged with eResources. So maybe you can spend a little bit of time on it and tell us how that sort of happened, what the company does.
Yeah. So I guess being as self-aware as I can, I realized that my leadership with this company can only go so far, right? Like I'm not the type of person that can build a $100 million company. I built a $2.5 million company. I'm very proud of that, but I'm not built to take that to the next level. And at this point, we've had employees and clients that have been with us for over 15 years now. And I feel like I have a duty and responsibility to them. So when I met up with Dusty Gullison, he's CEO of eResources, he's got that mindset of like, I'm going to turn a $2 million company into a $20 million company. And that's his purpose right now. He is doing that. And so that gives us more opportunity to do better work for more clients. And it also gives our staff more career path and more runway for themselves so they can keep seeing a future here. And that's been super, super, super rewarding. So many small businesses don't have an exit plan or an exit strategy, and they just fold. So like there were two sides of that, and it was funny. And now we're 3 years into it, and it's going great. And we have been able to serve clients on a much bigger and more secure platform now, because now we have an IT services division. So when somebody wants to talk about SOC 2 compliance or cybersecurity or some of those things that we were always just too small to get ahead of, now we've got those resources so we can take on those bigger clients and those bigger projects. And we've got the scrappiness of a small business, but foundation and the expertise of a bigger business. And that's the thing that's really helping us take off. We're renaming the company to Tectonic. And so you'll be able to find us at teamtectonic.com. And you can always find me on LinkedIn. Jason Clark is the URL there, but I'm pretty easy to find. Jason Clark, eResources, Tectonic, or Via Studio. You can find me pretty easily. Happy to have conversations. I love this type of conversation. So thank you.
Yeah. And I will say that, this has been really interesting. I mean, the purpose of the show has always been, and will always be, is to explain spiritual concepts, really tie into strategic success, and that there is no disconnect, that the stronger you embrace the one, the stronger you can build the other. And I think you added today really an element of understanding of, even when you get into this crazy, fabulous flow state and you've done everything right, there already is a moment where you have to say, understanding these spiritual laws and understanding business, which is all connected, that you already need to be paying very close attention to what you're planning next, because it's cyclical. It's a wave, a sine wave. You have to be prepared. Yes, absolutely. Jason, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was really a great conversation.
Love it. Yeah, we could talk for hours. I appreciate your time too. This is great.
Thank you so much, Jason. Pleasure to have you on the show. And that is it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode. And again, make sure that you share this with somebody who may be in a bit of a tough space, to help them understand there's another side to it and that they can actually initiate it. And with that, I say goodbye and until next time. That's it for this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, Founders of the Future. If you're done playing small and ready to build the future on your terms, subscribe, share, and help us reach more trailblazers like you. And if you're serious about creating, growing, and scaling a business that's aligned with who you are, schedule your Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com. Lead with vision. Move with purpose. Create your future.